Hey guys, Pete here. Are you ready for another installment of the Twin Peaks Season 1 Rewatch? Today I'm going to do my Twin Peaks Season 1 Episode 4 recap and review. It's the 5th episode in the first season. And although the whole first season is pretty strong, it's probably my least favorite episode, to be honest. There's just not a lot that happens that pushes the story forward. Before we get into the episode itself, we'll look at the Log Lady intro. This was filmed after the season went into syndication on the Bravo network, so the intros are interesting because they are written after the fact. For episode 4, the Log Lady says, "Even the ones who laugh are sometimes caught without an answer. These creatures who introduce themselves, but we swear we have met them somewhere before. Yes? Look in the mirror. What do you see? Is it a dream or a nightmare? Are we being introduced against our will? Are they mirrors? I can see the smoke. I can smell the fire. The battle is drawing nigh." So episode 4 was known as The One-Armed Man. It's the second episode in a row that has neither a credit for Mark Frost or David Lynch, except for being series creators. It was written by Robert Engels and directed by Tim Hunter, and it originally aired on May 3rd, 1990. The One-Armed Man starts out at the Palmer household. Sarah Palmer is working with a sketch artist giving a description of a man that she saw in her vision. Prompted by Leland, she also tells them about her vision that she had at the end of the pilot, where she saw a gloved hand digging Laura's half-heart necklace out from under the rock where James and Donna had put it. Donna happens to be in attendance while the sketch is being made, and she realizes that Sarah's vision was about someone taking that necklace that she and James had put there. And could that be the killer? We catch up with Agent Cooper, who's questioning Dr. Jacoby. He does some magic tricks with golf balls and doesn't really want to answer any questions based on doctor-patient confidentiality. In an attempt to get a reaction, Cooper tells Jacoby that Laura had sex with 3 men the night she died and asks him if he was one of them. To that, Jacoby says no, and he says Laura had secrets. And around these secrets, she built a fortress that in my 6 months seeing her, I wasn't able to penetrate, and for which I consider myself an abject failure. The one bit of information he gives to Cooper before he leaves, though, Jacoby says that he followed a man that Laura had spoken about in their sessions, and that man drove a red Corvette, so Cooper obviously knows that's Leo Johnson. Coop gets a call from Gordon Cole. We find out some information about Gordon's analysis of the body, find out that the bite marks on Laura's shoulder were from a bird. And Gordon also says that Albert hasn't given up his bid to file criminal charges against Sheriff Harry Truman. Cooper doesn't want to have anything to do with that. He assures Harry that nothing's going to come of it, and he tells Gordon that he'll fight that all the way up the chain to Washington if necessary. And he says to Harry, the last thing you need to worry about is some city slicker I brought into your town relieving himself upstream. Deputy Andy comes in with the sketch of the man Sarah Palmer saw in her vision, and Agent Cooper confirms that this is the guy that he saw in his dream, and that it's the killer named Bob. Deputy Hawk has tracked the mysterious one-armed man to an out-of-the-way hotel, the same place where he's staying Catherine Martell and Ben Horne are using for their affair. We see that Josie Packard's outside. She's trying to take pictures of Ben and Catherine. As Cooper and the sheriff and deputy approach the room of the one-armed man, Andy accidentally drops his gun and it goes off. After that, they bust into the room, and the one-armed man is in a towel, shocked, surprised, and he doesn't come off as someone who knows what's going on. We also see Ben go to take a shower, and when he's getting his stuff together, he drops a poker chip from One-Eyed Jack's that Catherine finds on the floor. So they question the one-armed man, whose name turns out to be Philip Gerard. They show him the sketch of Bob, and he claims he's never seen that guy. He asks him if he has a friend named Bob, and he says that Bob Lydecker is his friend, and that he's probably the best darn vet in this area. The reason that Philip Gerard was at the hospital is because he was visiting his friend who was assaulted in a local bar fight. We find out that he lost his arm in a car crash and that he's also selling shoes for a living. He's a traveling shoe salesman. Cooper tries to get him to describe the tattoo that was on his missing arm. In his dream, he heard that it said "Fire Walk with Me," but Gerard just starts crying here, and he said that he had a tattoo that said "Mom" on it. I'm not sure if Coop starts to question his dream at this point, but the way this scene plays out, you feel pretty sympathetic for the one-armed man, and it doesn't seem like he could actually be connected. Over at the school, we see Audrey talk to Donna in the bathroom. We see that Audrey has a bad girl streak where she's blazingly smoking a cigarette. They exchange some information. Find out that Dr. Jacoby was treating Laura, that Laura was probably working as a prostitute at One-Eyed Jack's, that her and Ronette both worked at the perfume counter at her dad's department store, and she lets on that that's where she's going to start digging in and start her investigation. We see Norma go to her husband's parole hearing. We learn that Hank was arrested for killing a homeless person and was there on a vehicular manslaughter conviction. Norma helps out the situation by saying she's going to give Hank a job, that they're husband and wife. She doesn't really seem sold on the whole idea while she's there, but she does do what is most helpful to Hank in this situation. After that, Cooper and Truman go over to the animal clinic that is run by Bob Lydecker, Philip Gerard's friend. It's a quirky scene, a quirky place, and Cooper seems convinced that the bird who attacked Laura Palmer is a client of this office, so they take all the files with them back to the sheriff's station. Bobby and Shelley are together at Shelley's place. They're making out in the kitchen. Bobby's pissed about James seeing Laura behind his back, but he's seeing Shelley behind Leo's back right at the same time. He has a pretty funny shirt on. It's like a bowling shirt or something like that, and the name on it is Dick, which is kind of funny. Shelley lets him know that Leo is with Jock, which Bobby obviously knows that they're in business together because he does business with them. Shelley ends up giving him the shirt with the blood on it, and she shows Bobby the gun that she bought for protection. This leads us into a scene where we see the guys, because of Andy's dropping his gun, we see them down at the shooting range. We see that Cooper is the best shot of them all. Harry Truman's not too bad. Andy needs practice and lots of it. And we get a pretty cool Hawk moment where he tells a story that he wrote to his girlfriend. And we learn that he has a girlfriend named Diane Shapiro who has a PhD, but we never meet her in the series. We get one of those Shelley and Norma moments where they talk about they have 2 men apiece and no idea what to do with any of the 4 of them. We see the identical cousin Maddie come in, and James kind of freaks when he sees her. And then Norma gets the phone call confirming that Hank will be paroled, and she looks none too happy about it. We pick back up with Audrey, who has put her plan into motion. She's going to get herself a job through her father over at Horne's. We see that she's manipulating a little bit, but also trying to get in his good graces at the same time. He gives her a hug, and then he gets a call, which we find out later is from Leo. There's also an introduction there where he's talking to his brother Jerry, and they're talking about bringing some Icelandic people into the Great Northern to talk to him about Ghostwood. Because the Lydecker files are not separated by animal name, but actually by the name of the pet, they have to do like an all-nighter kind of thing. And we learn when Gordon Cole calls back again that the fragment found in Laura's stomach is a poker chip and that the bird bites came from a parrot or a myna bird. At that same time, Andy discovers that Jacques Renault owns a myna bird named Waldo. And this gets Cooper all jacked up to go and raid Jack's apartment. But we already know that he's gone, having gone back with Leo across the border back into Canada. Now, the poker chip is from One-Eyed Jack's, and even though Jacques is not there, when they arrive, Bobby Briggs had already broken into the place, so he was there when they arrive, and he's able to leave the bloody shirt that he got off of Shelley there, which is got Leo's name sewn into the collar, and this makes them look like pretty good suspects in Laura's murder. After that, we see that Benjamin Horne is doing his business meeting by the river with Leo Johnson. He's going to pay him money to burn down the Packard Mill in 3 days. We find out when he's talking to Catherine that they want it to be set up so that it looks like Josie burned it down for insurance fraud because the place was bankrupt. We also basically find out that Benjamin Horne is involved in the local drug trafficking and that Leo has taken care of the Renault brothers. He said he made sure that Jacques would stay in Canada, and poor little Bernard ended up dead after he got out on his possession charge. And we see the body wrapped up there, so Leo did it himself. After that, we see Donna and James go out to that spot in the woods where they put the necklace. They confirm that it is gone, just like Sarah Palmer saw in her vision. James thinks they maybe should go to the police, which is not a bad idea, but it wouldn't be this soap opera deal that these two have going on if Donna didn't say something ridiculous. And in this case, she says, the police didn't love Laura. No one loved her but us, or nobody loved her but us. So, yeah. So we figure out that Donna and James believe that they have a better chance of figuring out what's going on here rather than the police do. Things end off over at the Packard place. Pete's asking Josie to be his partner. There is a fishing competition coming up with mixed doubles. We see that Pete is obviously enamored with Josie here, just as Harry is. And it's kind of cute, I guess, the way that he sort of follows after her. Obviously, she plays right into it. And, obviously Josie is an attractive woman and very mysterious still in this part of the thing. So it's kind of a nice little aside that they have going on there. We see Josie open a letter after Pete leaves, and it has a drawing of a domino. And then she gets a phone call from Hank, who is holding the domino that is depicted in the drawing, letting her know that he's getting out of prison. The way it goes down, he says, catch you later, so you kind of get this idea that there's a connection between these two characters. And if I'm not mistaken, this is when we find out that there is more to Josie's character than just being this sweet, innocent person that she's kind of plays up whenever we see her in her interactions. And that's pretty much it here. I mean, I said it's my least favorite episode of the first season, but that's really not saying much. Part of it is, when you rewatch it, a lot of the drama that's made here is about who the killer might be. So it's not like whenever you've seen and you already know who the killer is, that stuff's all that imperative anymore. So it's not like it was completely misguided or written badly or anything like that. It fits into the original season the way that it should, and it builds up things, but it's just a little bit lackluster in the way that things go down compared to the other episodes. I mentioned that Tim Hunter was the director. He made a movie that was out around the same time, I guess. It was called River's Edge, and it had Keanu Reeves and Dennis Hopper in it. It was actually a good movie. I remember it. I haven't seen it for a very long time, but I enjoyed it when I was a kid. So that's interesting. Hunter goes on and directs a couple more episodes later on in season 2. As far as trivia for the episode goes, it's kind of funny that, and I don't know that I ever really thought about it that deeply until I watched it this time, but when Ben's getting ready to go into the shower at the motel, he says he's going to give little Elvis a bath, and he literally has a small little Elvis statue. Now, of course, Elvis referred to his own penis as Little Elvis. So it's a reference to that. And I guess from what I've read, this is how they got it past the censors. Instead of saying he was going into the shower to wash his penis, he held up a little Elvis doll so that it wouldn't seem like a reference to what it actually is. So that's kind of funny. This episode was actually viewed by more people than watched the one before it. This was whenever things were really picking up for the series, and I thought it was interesting. In the first time it came out on May 3rd, 1990, it was viewed by 11.9% of U.S. households. That represents 19% of everybody that was watching TV that night. So you have to think about that in context. I mean, that was 1 in 5 people who were watching TV in the US in 1990 watched this episode when it first aired. So that's pretty big, you know what I mean? Like, if you weren't around at that time to remember how much of a hype there was around this series, that should give you a little bit of an idea. I think some of the biggest things we find in this episode is that Maddie is nothing like Laura. In fact, she is sort of like a idealistic version of what Laura might have been if what we find out later in Fire Walk with Me and in other parts of this season and the second season had been going on with her. So it's sort of like, you know, they kind of made fun of the trope in the last episode. And then here, I think that it just shows that she's not really there for any deep insight into Laura herself, but as a contrast to what Laura might have been. Also, the sketch of Bob, and we finding out that Sarah Palmer's visions are somewhat accurate is pretty big stuff, I guess. And, you know, the stuff with Philip Gerard is obviously a little bit of misdirection, and we'll see how that all plays out later on in season 1. That's it for today, guys. I will probably have another one of these out next week. As mentioned in previous videos, this is brought to you by my Patreon patrons. They support this series by donating to me over there. I would love it if you would join me too, so follow the link at the top of the screen or at the end of the video and read more about it there. I'm thinking about going through the second season as well, which has obviously a lot more episodes and will take a lot more time. So I'm hoping that I'll be able to get some more people involved over there and we can keep that going, because that will take quite a bit of time to get through all of it. Please like the video if you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I have got some different stuff coming out soon. I'm still working out exactly what I'm going to do in the downtime between Mr. Robot and Westworld. So if you have any ideas, that's another thing you can do, is come over on Patreon and let me know what you would like to see. I'm going to be doing some voting over there in the near future, so the people who are contributing get to have a say in what the channel will have going forward. That's it for today. I will talk to you soon.